Hey everyone, this is Laura Dopkins, and in this tutorial we're going to go over building a custom post class. This is going to be a wrapper class for WordPress's register post type function. If you're a WordPress developer, you probably already have some experience with this function. I'm going to show you how using a class can save you some time and probably a few lines of code. You can reuse the class in any project, and once you've written it, it's write once, use anywhere. So let's get started. Let me show you where you can grab the code. I've uploaded it to GitHub as a gist, so it's at gist.github.com/dobbylou. And then you can go ahead and click on Custom Post, and that's where you can get the code if you don't want to work along with me. Okay, let's get started. First of all, I've installed a fresh copy of WordPress, and I've activated a very simple demo theme. Let's go ahead and pull up those files. Alright, this is my local installation of WordPress. If we go to WP Content, Themes, and then we pull up our demo theme, we can go ahead and check out the code. The first thing I want to note is this is pretty much the most basic theme that you can have within WordPress. You have your style sheet. This basically defines the theme within WordPress. You have index.php, which is just running a very simple loop. And we have an empty functions.php and a screenshot. All right, before we can use the class, we have to go ahead and write it. So I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it custom post.php, and I'm going to save it in my theme directory. I'm going to take advantage of PHP namespacing, and this is a good practice because it's going to help us ensure that there aren't any naming conflicts when we include other code in our WordPress theme. Next, let's go ahead and define the class. This class is going to have two properties. The text domain, and this is going to be used when we're building our labels, and an array that's going to hold all the posts that we want to register. Next, we want to build our constructor function. Within the constructor, pass in the text domain for this theme so that we can go ahead and initialize it. So let's go ahead and do that. And then next we want to initialize our post array just to an empty array. Let's make this posts plural. And then finally in our constructor we want to register an action hook, and we're going to do this on WordPress's init action, and we're going to tell WordPress we want it to register our posts when it runs this hook. If we provide an instance using the keyword this, and then the name of the method we want it to call, WordPress will go ahead and call this method on our class. And in this method, what we want to do is we want to get all of the posts in our post array, and we want to loop over them. So let's go ahead and do that. For each of the posts in our post array, we want to loop, and we want to call the function register post type, and we want the key to be the type of post and the values to be the settings for this specific post. Alright, so this is all good, but right now we don't have any way of populating our post array, so we're going to go ahead and create a make function that will allow us to add any new posts, any new custom posts that we want to include in our theme. So let's go ahead and write that function. Now the first parameter to this function is going to be the type of post that we want to create. And the next thing we need to provide to our make function is the singular label, the plural label, and then there's going to be a whole slew of settings that the register post type function can accept, and we want to be able to override those. So let's just create a settings array that's going to be optional. If you're like me, then each time you use register post type, configuring a really long arguments array can get kind of tedious. And so what we do is we're going to use a default settings array that just has some, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it in, but it just has some basic settings. It's going to define all our labels based on some of the parameters that we dropped in, and some basic default stuff which you can change to whatever your preference is and whatever you tend to use. And then just to note the rewrite slug, what we've done here is we're using WordPress's sanitized title with dashes, and we're just dropping in the plural labels. So we'll be using any plural label that comes in and then just cleaning it up to make sure that it's safe for the URL. So now that we have our default settings, we need to have a way of overriding the settings, and we're going to use PHP's array merge function to accomplish this. So we have our default settings would be the first parameter or the first argument that goes into that function. And then the settings that the user provides, we're just going to go ahead and override any of those keys that the user is setting. So let's go ahead and store what's returned from this in our posts array. And if you remember that the key is supposed to be the type, and then the value of the array is going to be any of the settings. And that's how we're going to call our register post type within the loop. So that's really all there is to it. And now let's go ahead and show you how we can utilize this in your functions.php. Okay, first thing we need to do is go ahead and load in our class. We're going to use get template directory to get a path to our theme, and then we're going to append the rest of the path to our class name, our class file. So now that we have our class loaded, we should be able to create an instance of our class. Remember, we used PHP namespacing, so let's get the proper name. And remember, we're going to send in the text domain. Now that we have an instance of our class, let's go ahead and use our make method to create a custom post. Remember, the first argument was the type of post we want to make. So let's assume that we're creating a portfolio site and we want to create a custom post type of project. Now remember, the second argument was the singular label. So let's go ahead and write project, and then we'll go ahead and make projects the plural label. And I'm going to leave the default settings here. All right, let's check out our admin panel and see if we have our custom post available. And we do, right there. Awesome, I hope this was helpful. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment or send me a note. Thanks.